So we are back here again, Fire Breathing Rob. Thanks so much for everybody that's listening, whether it's on the radio or on our YouTube channel. Please like, share this interview if it's on one of those podcasting platforms. If you're listening to us on the radio again, thanks so much. Evan Gilllissie here on Fire Breathing Rob. Ashley Kalis is campaign manager for the state of Rhode Island governor's race. She was the Republican candidate. Let's keep going into this interview. So, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Evan, that you wrote a little Twitter snippet about the mail ballots issue. I could be wrong, but I believe it was you. Was that
Oh,
some?
that was Matt, I believe, the comms director. He was,
Okay.
I believe this happened regarding one of the Warwick races, right? Where there was a closed mail ballot race. Is that what
It
you're
was
referring
like
to?
four votes, right?
So, yeah, no, actually, you're not gonna hear me complaining about mail ballots. I'm actually totally okay with them. I
Okay.
question the integrity of the system that Rhode Island has created. It's very different than other states. The lack of a witness, the signature use, to be able to pick up ballots for other people for in the case of emergency ballots. I think a lot of it raises eyebrows. It's the name of the game in Rhode Island. And I think if Republicans want to win, instead of complaining about it, they need to be better at it. So, Ashley went out of her way to try to hire some of the best talent in the mail ballot game, which is a thing in Rhode Island, very different from other states in that sense. But, at the end of the day, you just need to, if Republicans didn't spew the concept that mail ballots are fraudulent or they lead to insecure elections, then perhaps Republican voters would feel more secure to vote via mail, and then you'd end up getting more votes than your opponent. But when you attack the system as a whole, I think you end up creating distrust within it, and you end up hurting yourself and
Mhm.
just other Republicans on the ballot as a whole. That's my take on it, though.
Well, what is your take on this? Because I believe, and you know the logistics better than me, but I believe the early voting, which I'm in favor of a lot of these things, as you are too. The early voting was over 2 weeks, I believe. I believe it was like 20-ish days. You can correct me if I'm wrong on these numbers. But you got the early voting, 20-ish days. You've got election day, obviously. You also have the absentee ballots and the mail ballots.
And
Isn't
emergency ballots and provisional ballots.
yeah, isn't this a little bit excessive? Like, places like Florida, they have early voting for, I believe it's about a week and a half to 2 weeks too, but they don't have all these other provisional, mailed. You have the absentee ballot if you're going away, if you just can't make it to the poll, maybe something like that. You can get those ballots, but it seems like there's a lot of ballots around. And again, we're not saying that this would have changed anything, that there was any fraud, but there's just a lot of ballots around and things could happen. In fact, I want to tell you a situation when you're done answering that question of someone real close to me that had a situation about like this.
Yes. So the thing that I would focus on changing would be the early voting timeline. I think it's too big.
Like
Um,
about a week.
yeah, I think a week is fair. I mean, it's the hard thing with picking a number. It's arbitrary, right?
Mhm.
So you just choose what you have to have some sort of data that supports the chosen number. Helena Folks, I am
Right,
sure she would not be a massive fan of the amount of early voting that took place,
right.
especially when most of the Democratic gubernatorial primary debates took place within that early voting window, and she would have won. And Helena Folks versus Ashley Kalis would have been a much harder path than Ashley versus Dan McKee. And objectively speaking, Helena Folks would be a 10 times better governor than Dan McKee will ever be, because
Agree.
he's just not going to, he's not a good governor. He's flat out just not. Um, and we could talk for hours about, why he's unfit to serve, which he is unfit to serve. He's a sellout, he's a crook, and he's not in it for the right reasons. But again, he could argue that all he wants. But regardless, it's early voting that I would like to see changed. Perhaps emergency ballot reform, not allowing someone else to pick up your ballot on your behalf from a town hall where you can garner 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 ballots at a time from each particular precinct or municipality's town hall or city hall, whatever you want to call it. So I think some reform could be done there. Democrats obviously don't want that, especially in a state like Rhode Island, where there's 40-something% Democrats to 13% Republicans or something very, very small like that. So that is where my gripe would be with early voting.
This is an audience question, and this is Jane from South Kingston. You brought it up earlier on in the interview. It's talking about the NBC 10 debate. I was actually there, and there was a lot of talk about right before that debate, I should say, is the corruption issue that happened at the State House, where the Speaker of the House's aide failed to disclose the ties that he had with that marijuana business. Gene Vellicenti, never brought that up at the debate that I remember personally. And it seemed like Ashley didn't really push that too much. Do you think that was a mistake? I know it was at the end of the race, and obviously the corruption in Rhode Island, as growing up here as well as I do, is a Democratic owned issue. Is that they own that issue of corruption? It's always Democrats. Do you feel like that was a problem that wasn't brought up at the debate, and then Ashley didn't really push that envelope too hard?
Yeah, I think there's a long list of things Ashley, myself, the team as a whole would rather she was able to work in more eloquently or bring up. It's a very stressful, scary, intimidating experience
Sure.
to do a debate. And the amount of time and effort that goes into prepping, especially given the Boston Globe and the Projo stories and the text messages and pregnant woman and all the other things that were going on, that kind of kudos to the governor, who, by the way, was responsible for leaking all of those stories, right? It wasn't
Mhm.
journalism that leaked them. It was the governor that gave it to journalists. It's just how it works in
Well, they were
politics.
definitely paying somebody, Evan, to get those stories, and that person must have been getting paid pretty well because they were working those stories.
He does get paid well to do what he does, and he does a good job at it. There's no doubt about it. But do I wish she did some things differently in debates? 100%. I think she actually did a phenomenal job for a
She did.
first-time candidate, for someone who, if those who get to know her, know that she likes to talk a lot. It's 30-second answers aren't Ashley's strength. 3, 4, 5-minute answers, that's Ashley's strength. She gets to dig in, put her teeth into an issue, and talk about actual tangible solutions. That's not what a debate is. A debate is trying to get in your lines. The debate where it was the Projo Rhode Island Public Radio, the People's
Mhm.
Radio debate at Rhode Island College, she wiped the floor with the governor in that
Agreed.
debate. And he was on his heels. He was embarrassed. He was angry. He was so bad. He was so bad during that debate. And I think that, my hopes were that we'd get one more of those at the Channel 10 debate. It certainly, I would say, maybe it was a wash, lean Ashley. I'm sure McKee people would say it was a wash, lean McKee. Like, he's good at filibustering. He's good at talking about how many millions he's spent on things. He's good at kind of just filling time with nothingness,
Yeah.
which
Well, the
it works,
vaccines is the big line.
which is ridiculous. I mean, it's objectively ridiculous that he hangs his hat on vaccines when he actually said it right. Yeah, I bailed you out. What he started in March, he hired her in April. She took over. She took over from the National Guard and turned Rhode Island into and of course there's going to be issues, right? And then the 100 complaint story, I think that was flat out I would call it the worst story of the campaign was the 100 complaint story out of the Projo early on. I think it was bad journalism. I think it was completely unfair. The fact that the headline read that, and then that was what people. I mean, that story stuck with us the entire time. There's no doubt about it. When you're doing something like 460 something thousand interactions with patients, and they ding you on having 100 complaints. I mean, that's pathetic. That's just horrible journalism. And Ashley always says I should be given an award for how good of a customer service rate I had, and instead this Projo decides to say quite the opposite. But again, it is what it is. It comes with the territory.
Did the RGA let you guys down as far as funding goes?
No, I had very realistic expectations for what the RGA would do. Of
Okay.
course, would I have loved for them to come in with millions of dollars? Yeah, like loved it. It would have been great.
But they
Certainly
did fund you guys then.
the RGA.
Yeah. Or
No,
no?
no.
Okay. That's what I figured.
Yeah, they did some they they did some things more behind the scenes, not coordinating with the campaign at all, whether it's some data or some helping with messaging and stuff like that, but completely unrelated to I did not work with the RJ at all for the most part.
Wow.
And that's, following the law, but also just I did not want to make it a national race.
Okay. So you, because you just said, and I just want to make sure this is clear to myself and people listening. You just said that you were hoping to get the RGA money, but then you didn't want to make it a national race. How would that have even worked, though?
Yeah, good point. In an ideal world, they would come in October 1,
Yeah.
right? And then they spend their 3 million in 5 weeks, essentially. That comes as a double-edged sword, because then you get so I go back and forth. I've thought a lot about this exact question and I'm not saying that we were like, don't come in. Of course, we're hoping that they would come in, but there's another piece to it, which is like, well, there's some beauty in the no national. That's why the DGA not coming in was also really good. They came in at the very end. I don't think it made a difference whatsoever. Who was
Mm.
paying attention those last 3 days? Their ad didn't even go up until I want to say Friday at like 2 p.m. before the election. So like, and it was an abortion ad. It wasn't the Boston Globe story. It wasn't the text message. It was like that's what I could have written them a better ad if they were going to spend 260 in 3 days. Like here's what you really should be hitting us on. But then again, they won, so
Yeah.
it worked.
This is when I think that what you just brought up is another reason why it hurt Alan Fung. The NRCC came in for Alan Fung, 100%. Kevin McCarthy came here, and obviously that didn't help Alan Fung because Seth Magaziner rang that around his neck. And we didn't think that was going to happen as far as the abortion issue and all these, that is a big issue and voting for Kevin McCarthy. But it seemed like people didn't vote on inflation. People didn't vote on gas prices. People voted on abortion. And I, you would know maybe better than me.
Yeah,
I don't get it. I don't get it.
they voted on. My takeaway was 30% of the country, when they hear January 6th, when they hear Donald Trump
Yeah.
is bad, all of those things, 30% of the country rolls their eyes. 33%
But
of
do
the
you
country.
think that Donald J. Trump had an effect on the governor's race, though?
1000%, yes,
Really? Okay.
without a shred of doubt. This was a referendum on Trump. This election was yet again, uh, and I say that because abortion was tied to Trump, right? He appointed the judges. The
Yeah,
judges
but
are
it's caught, and she made this a point, and I know you guys, you made it a point, obviously, as the campaign, that it's codified in Rhode Island. She could win, and obviously the General Assembly is Democrat. So she can't do anything without working with them. They already codified it. It was just like I don't know.
Rhode
I don't
Island
want to
is
call people stupid, but
we have one of the worst education systems in the country, despite spending some of the highest per pupil dollars on students in the country. We
yeah.
have one of the worst tax rates in the country. We have a corrupt speaker's office. The governor, the speaker of the house was caught, as you brought up earlier about the Channel 12 story, caught red-handed. And again, the governor is under FBI investigation. It doesn't matter. People just don't care. What they apparently care about is it is that MAGA-ish, Trump-ish abortion rights. It's the Gen Z, the young millennial vote, the suburban vote that is
Mm.
not over the Trump years. If they were over it, we would have had a red tsunami, and Rhode Island may have gone red, but we did not have a red tsunami. We had a a, a little splash, maybe. I mean, Arizona now is the governor's Democrat, Secretary of State's a Democrat, Attorney General's a Democrat, and in these areas where Pennsylvania, again, a total bloodbath for Republicans. It's just I don't know what else it could possibly be other than a referendum on Donald Trump. And I understand that's unpopular perhaps to say because people will say I'm unhinged or I have Trump derangement syndrome or whatnot. But I worked for the
Yeah,
man for 2.5 years.
right.
So I worked in the White House. I see what he's like as a leader. And well, there's a reason I didn't vote for him the second time. And I think that the super majority of America still see that. And if it's a Trump Biden reelect in 2024, I don't think it will be. I think Ron DeSantis will probably win that primary, or maybe a moderate squeaks through because you have the Trump and the DeSantis pulling that 60 something percent of the party. And then maybe there's room for like a Nikki Haley or a Tim Scott or someone else.
Mm.
But point being is, yeah, abortion dictated this election much more than people thought it would. And you had said, well, it does matter now. It's codified. Yeah, I could scream that from the rooftop every single day. And that's what I want people to take away is that your right to an abortion is not going to be affected under Ashley Cahill's governorship at all. In fact, I would argue she might even be a little bit more protective of women as a whole than Dan McKee ever will because he just doesn't understand the issues. He doesn't have any sort of philosophical understanding of issues for the most part, where she actually does. So yeah, that's my answer. I think abortion and a referendum on Trump was what was on the ballot, not just in Rhode Island, but across the entire country.
Andrea from Johnston, this is a question that I would think of too, is why didn't Ashley Kalis campaign with Alan Fung? You worked for Alan Fung, you know him very well. Obviously, you ran Ashley's campaign, you know her very well. There was a lot of talk in the back rooms on radio and media in general saying that they didn't like each other. Fung didn't want to be with her. It might have took away from his race as winning against Seth Magaziner. What happened there? Tell us the lowdown.
No, that's a great question. That's one I've heard the scuttlebutt, of course. I'm very close with Mayor Fung. I consider him a dear friend. Obviously, I'm very close with Ashley. And I would say the two of them, they did campaign together. I mean, they went to probably, I don't know, 30 to 60 events together
Didn't
over the
he make
course.
a speech at her
Yeah.
when she won the primary?
He made a speech.
There was a because there was yeah, go ahead.
We did a road to victory breakfast with a group of like 100 supporters back in June. He was a keynote speaker, the keynote speaker there, her and Ashley. They went to fundraisers together. They went to events, especially in the Cranston, Warwick area. We would
Mm.
always try to sync up if possible. At the same time, it's Alan Fung was running. He is a seasoned politician. He is a well-oiled machine. Alan is truly phenomenal in that sense. So he has a very clear picture of how he wants his campaigns to run. Then you have Ashley, who's coming in, who's a bit more of a bomb thrower, right? She doesn't the not from here thing. She doesn't owe anybody in Rhode Island anything. She doesn't really care about who's donating to her campaign. We appreciated all donations. In fact, you can still donate. However, she just had a completely different philosophy when it comes to campaigning. And was there bad blood there? No, not at all. Did
But
they
there
have
was
her?
talk that the governor was very close with Alan Fung, and that's why no.
Nope,
Okay.
not true. I mean, I don't think the governor is very close with anyone unless you write him $1,000 check.
That could be true.
Does the governor and Alan have a relationship? I'm sure,
Yeah,
Rhode
because he was
Island's like this big, but like, was Alan secretly working for the governor? No.
no. I think it was that because there was talk that Allen didn't run for governor against McKee because they were friendly with each other. And I mean, I don't know all the backstories. I'm not in the political loop in Rhode Island. This is just from what I'm hearing.
Never had that conversation with the mayor about why he didn't run for governor. If he had asked me for my opinion on the matter, I would have told him not to run for governor against Dan McKee. He did it twice unsuccessfully.
Yeah.
I think if he were to do it a third time unsuccessfully, that'd probably be the nail in the coffin. I know there was talks of him running for other statewide offices before Jim Langevin announced his retirement. I'm sure, if we all had a time machine, that'd be a great question for Alan. I'd wonder if he had a time machine, would he like to go back and run for, say, treasurer, attorney general,
Yeah.
something?
Well, let's bring that up. Because Bob Walsh, who is a pretty big mouth. I got to be careful what I say on the radio and on the YouTube. But people know who he is. He was a McKee advisor. He was
Mhm.
on, and you might have saw this. He was on Channel 12 the other day on, I believe it was on. It was taped Friday, shown on Saturday, saying that Ashley Kalish should have ran for lieutenant governor. If she did, she would have definitely won that race. And Alan Fung should have ran for treasurer. And if Ashley ran for lieutenant governor and won, she would have built up that name recognition to run for governor in 2024. What is your opinion on all that?
I would encourage Bob Walsh to spend more time thinking about how to get kids out of failing schools and less about the political philosophy of what people should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. I have a lot of respect for Bob Walsh. I got to know him. Him and I get along swimmingly. We both kind of have a wittier, kind of joking sense of humor. So that bonds us, I would say. I don't have anything terrible to say about him other than the fact that if education's your big thing, fix schools in Rhode Island, please. You owe it to the children. Don't worry about what Ashley should have run for. Get kids out of failing schools, especially in Providence.
All right, last few questions, and I do really appreciate you really sticking in here, Evan, and
Yeah,
really giving us some time and
it's
being,
fun.
yeah, some thoughtful answers to a lot of questions that Rhode Islanders and people that have been following me talk about this race, knowing what's going on. You know, what do you feel like the Kalis campaign accomplished in the rebuilding of the Republican Party? Personally, I think the Republican Party in Rhode Island needs a lot of rebuilding, but you guys brought a lot of energy. When you would go into the campaign headquarters, whether it was in Warwick, I went down to Warwick quite a few times, and I also went to Woonsocket quite a few times and met Arthur over there. I don't know if you know him, but he's a
Oh yeah.
character. Uh, and we still chit chat every once in a while. But there was a lot of young people. They were energized. You could see that when you guys would go to the debates, especially the second debate, which you brought up earlier on in the interview, where the cheering section for the Kalis section, Kalis cheering section was totally there in that debate, and then. And McKee even actually got a little upset and said that you guys were stealing tickets or some other mumbo jumbo. But regardless of that, in the third debate, he brought the Union thugs there, and they were having a big old
Yeah,
powwow in the front.
they took away some of our tickets for that last debate, because we did the same thing we did the second time, which is the second that link went live, we scooped them all up and then we passed them on to supporters, right? Nothing's completely proper, nothing wrong about it. We did the same thing, we blasted out to like 50 people, everyone come on, grab the tickets. We had that event sold out in about 25 minutes. And then about 2 hours later, we start getting emails saying, no, 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 one ticket per person. But regardless,
Do you feel like it's brought a lot of energy back to the Rhode Island Republican Party because there's a lot of rebuilding needed to be done?
uh, rebuilding need to be done, and it needs to be done even further. It's a two double-pronged issue. The second prong is less fun than the first prong. The first prong is it didn't really have Sue Cienki is phenomenal. My God, she's a stalwart. She works her tail off to deliver on behalf of the party. She's only one person. She only do so much. I think when Ashley came in, she came in as a party builder. That's what she wanted to do. That's what she wanted to be. She felt, she had first time candidate, but she had been in politics previously, so she knew what it took to have a well-oiled machine, and she wanted to replicate that in Rhode Island, or at least within the RIGOP. So she wasn't afraid to expel resources to build the party, which brings me to why the party is going to struggle. Is it's just a lack of resources. When you don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank, you can't afford to pay people, you can't afford to get a data firm, you can't afford to put out mass robocalls. There's it's a self-fulfilling prophecy when you're running in the red essentially as a party, and you're not able to get, you don't need 10-15 grand, you need 500 to a million within the state party to really be able to make some moves. And that just Ashley donated the max amount she could to the state party. She's only one person. She encouraged others to do so. And I would hope that's my biggest thing for the future of Rhode Island Republican politics is they need to raise money more than they ever have before.
But is there an issue with young people getting involved in the Republican Party in Rhode Island since it's such a Democratic state?
Uh, I didn't see, I definitely saw that youth engagement, especially at the Ashley headquarters in Warwick where I
But
spent.
is that just an Ashley thing? Like,
I think it was an
hypothet
Ashley
yeah,
thing.
okay.
I think it was an Ashley thing. And because she's young, she's 40, she's a millennial,
Yeah.
right? She is, to some extent, I think what the future of the party needs is a little bit more Ashley and a little bit more of that. She liked to troll online. She liked to
Right.
have like funny, like, I think trolling is going to be the future of politics. Like right now, it's a little faux pas, but at some point in time, Gen Z and millennials will be making the decisions. And they already kind of sort of are. And unless your messaging shifts towards that, like people are sick and tired of the black and white, scary voiceover kind of messaging. They want funny. They want kind of
Yeah.
that's what energizes them. So I would like to see. I have no idea what Ashley's future plans are. Zero idea. So you can ask. I don't know the answer. But I do know that I have a hope that she stays involved. And if she were to, I would love to see her kind of continue to build that, like I would define it as like a millennial Republican moderate branding. And I think that, she could be very successful with that type of branding.
Well, just to jump on what you just said about Ashley, there was talk that somebody reported it that she's going to stay in Rhode Island regardless, and that was all they reported. But is that what you're hearing also, that she's going to stay in Rhode Island and just completely keep her base there?
I believe, to my knowledge, she plans on staying on Rhode Island. If I were her and I had the money that she has, I would travel, I would go, I would spend a little time not thinking about, the last 7, 8, 9 months and
Sure.
just, I know she has houses in other places. So is she going to spend 12 months a year on Island? God, for her own mental health, I hope not. But I do
I hear
believe,
you.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I believe right now on what is this, November 20th, I can say I believe she's staying in Rhode Island. Like I think her kids are in school in Rhode Island
Right.
and she plans to move them, maybe a couple months at a time somewhere else. And I hope she does. If again,
Mm.
she's a free person, so she's allowed to do whatever she wants. It just uh always has political consequences.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And let's just roll into this. What's next for you in politics? I mean, you are all over the place. I learned a lot about you at the beginning of this interview that I didn't even know. And we could do about 25 different podcasts on everything you've done. But what is next for you? I know you're taking a little break. You're going to do some traveling. Then you're going back to DC, as you told me earlier. Then what's next? Are you going back to your old position or looking
Great question.
into, yeah, good.
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I'm taking the rest of the year off. So I'm off until January. I'll probably start looking for a job when I get back to DC. I think there's perhaps some potential for me to go back to my old firm. I loved it there. So I had a great relationship with my boss. That's always on the table. I would love to get a little bit more into being able to do something on my own. I think that would be fun, whether it's consulting or I love to communicate and talk and I like to talk about big, complicated, thorny issues, whether it's abortion
Yeah.
or the war in Ukraine. Like you name it, I love to get into the weeds on it. So that could be kind of fun just to work on the side, do some more stuff like this and just see where things go. In the short term, I believe, I'll look for a private sector job. No desire to manage a campaign again. I can assure you that.
Oh, wow. Why
There's
is that?
nothing like Ashley. It's just it's grueling. I don't think
Yeah.
people have uh, a full understanding of just how unbelievably exhausting and tiring and heartbreaking and your whole life is just helping get this one person elected to governor or Congress or whatever the position is at the time. So going from that 7 days a week, 16, 17 hours a day,
Yeah.
it, it's just hard to think, okay, let's go do that again.
Right. No, I mean, you're going to be on some heavy drugs to probably do that. So, well, we'll leave it at that. Evan, thanks so much for your time today. Again, for people listening, this is Evan Gilllissie. If they want to find more about you, Evan, or follow you on social media, how can they do that?
Yeah, so my Twitter is eGillissie, GILLISSIE, or Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Evan Gillissie.
Evan Gillespie, thanks so much for your time again. Big things. I see big things for you, I should say. And I hope that you can come on here again and talk about all kinds of different issues. It's been really great having you on and just hearing a lot of insides of the campaign that we, as Rhode Islanders didn't know or hear about. So thanks so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you so much. And if I have last word, I would
Sure.
just quickly say, you know, Ashley was a phenomenal candidate. I was super proud to work for her. I am grateful that I'll maintain a friendship with her for the rest of my life. But for folks that haven't had a chance to meet her yet, I would go beyond what you read in the news and try to find her at a coffee shop, talk to her out on the street. I mean, she's just truly an incredible, incredible person. And I think she was the right choice for Rhode Island, but maybe another time, who knows?
See what happens. I agree with you 100%. Evan, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye.